The scenes of chaos and death that defined Monday 23rd May 2016 came close to fulfilling the political prophecy by Chief Justice Dr. Willy Mutunga on October 30th, 2015, overtaking time bomb in the country.
The country is dancing on a precipice and it may flip over.
In reality, this is what he meant then.
The drums of possible violence are being heard by all of us. And if you haven't heard them, then you don't know anything about this country.
Ule mtu wa vitadawili alisema ati nyinyi sijui ni milisi ya Jubilee. Hapa Katoro nyinyi ni milisi ya yangu, mimi sitaki ujinga. Nimewapatia mapaga, kata mtu kama mtakata. Na sio yangu sababu mimi mwenyewe, ni yangu sababu ya kulinda ile maendeleo ambao mimi na Mheshimiwa Rais tunaleta hapa Katundu.
This time round, the outcome of election, ikiwa tumeshinda na watunyang'anye watakiyumane.
Uchaguzi wa 2017 tutashinda kwa nguvu, tutanunua, tutaiba, whatever will be. Okay? Mnakubali, mnakataa?
7 months down the line, political chaos have begun rocking the country. What started off as peaceful protests calling for the removal of IEBC commissioners has now caused the deaths of at least 3 Kenyans shot by police officers as the weekly demonstrations entered their 4th week. Amid the bloodshed and destruction of property, the two competing camps, the government and the opposition, have maintained their hardline positions and continue to talk at each other.
Hata wewe ukienda uone mzee alika ya baba yako ati amelala kwa barabara na na anapiga filimbi. Sasa hiyo ni aibu jamani.
Mambo bado mambo itakuwaka, wiki ijayo ndio itakuwa kubwa zaidi. Ikiwa kama Bwana Uhuru na wenzake wanafikiri wanaweza kututisha, tunaambia watatisha Wakenya wote. Hawezi kutisha Wakenya wote. Na hii sio mchezo.
Their high-pitched exchanges reveal the deep-seated political animosity and the grand divide with barely 14 months before next year's general election.
How much bloodshed does our friend want? Or how much destruction of property? Or how much chaos does he want to cause so that he can get whatever he's looking for in this country? We want to tell him we are saying no to radicalization of our country. We are saying no to violence. We want to refuse and resist this mass action and all the destruction that it comes in, because we want a peaceful nation. Tunataka kuendesha taifa letu mbele.
For avoidance of doubt, you remember the Jubilee people went to court, and the court did make a ruling that the demonstrations were legal and should continue. And then we gave notice that we are going to be having demonstrations every Monday. So this limping excuse by the police yesterday that, oh, they were not notified, is just a stupid excuse. As a result of it, innocent Kenyans have lost lives today. Shot, not as a result of falling as running away from police, but shot by the police. In Kisumu, the guy who was killed was not even a demonstrator.
Katiba ambayo tuko naye leo, ambayo inataka kurudia tena, tulipitisha tukiongozwa na wale ambao sasa wanatupinga. Yasema ya kwamba hizo nguvu ambazo zilikuwa na Rais Moi, Uhuru Kenyatta hana hizo nguvu leo. Hiyo nguvu imepatiwa wengine. So hata ukiandamana mpaka kesho, hata ukiandamana mwaka mzima, mimi sina uwezo wa kubadilisha ile ambayo iko. Mimi sina uwezo wa kuondoa hizo kisari. Mimi sina uwezo wa kuondoa IEBC.
Jubilee bado
hawako tayari kupeleka IEBC nyumbani. Hakuna haja ya kuzungumza na watu ambao tunajua wanakalia mamlaka katasi Jubilee. Na sisi tunasisitiza kwamba ili kuwe na uchaguzi ambao wananchi wa Kenya wanaweza kuamini mwaka ujao, mwaka kesho, IEBC iende nyumbani.
Religious leaders and diplomats have since denounced the violence being experienced and even offered to mediate talks to resolve the dispute over the Electoral Commission. It remains yet unclear whether they have made any breakthrough.
We wish to remind Jubilee, CORD and other political parties that Kenyans will hold them accountable should the country slide back to anarchy because of unyielding, competing political interests.
We appeal both to the opposition and to the government to make sure that they resolve this problem. Because what is happening now is really dangerous. First of all, forget about losing lives. Again, it is not good for the economy of our country and for the image of our country.
We appeal to His Excellency the President, whose mandate rises above party, ethnic and sectoral interests, to support structured discussions with the opposition in person and in addition help create a structure for engagement of other stakeholders.
We believe that an urgent political solution is required to avert an imminent crisis that could complicate next year's election and plunge the country into election violence.
All these calls for both government and opposition to drop their hardline positions and negotiate to avert further chaos seem to fall on deaf ears.
Haya yote wanasema sijui wanataka IEBC iende, hiyo ni haki yao na hakuna mtu atawasimamisha. Lakini jameni, tumia ile barabara ambayo imewekwa katika sheria kupata yale ambayo unataka.
Kama Jubilee tuko tayari kuketi chini, wabunge wetu wako tayari kuketi chini, tufanye mazungumzo vile tutafanya uchaguzi mwaka ujao. Yale ambayo hatukubali ni kwamba wanaleta wananchi barabarani, kunatokea umwagigaji wa damu, kunatokea uharibifu wa mali na kunatoka fujo Nairobi. Hiyo ni mambo ambayo hatukubali katika taifa letu la Kenya.
CORD has to this extent filed a petition for the removal of commissioners through the organ of parliament and through the instrument of the referendum, both of which were frustrated and ignored, and they continue making cynical comments about them.
Our elites do not seem to have a consensus on what it is in the national interest and how to build our nation and state under the 2010 Constitution.
Security analyst Delano Kiilu warns of dire consequences should the political class keep stoking the fire.
What is the definition of what is happening? Are we talking about a political battle that is coming up here? Are we talking about a security risk because there's people who are trying to perpetrate many kinds of misconduct? Or are we looking at this from a different angle? Is, for example, the mount up something that is being engineered? Or is this something that is not political? And is this something that is being influenced? Is it being influenced from within the nation, or is this being influenced from without the nation?
Wafula Buke, a former political detainee in the 90s, is of the same view, having been part of the civil unrest then.
Every time we suffered heavy casualties, we kind of discovered the other side of Moi. He responded, he gave us the IPG after we lost lives and had demonstrations. Yet at that time he had the authority not to sanction those demonstrations. But he gave in and allowed people to really do something a bit. So now we have a situation where the more people die, the more smiles we see on TV by the beautiful Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, the more celebration mood and mockery experience, hardline positions. I think this country is under very serious threat.
Good afternoon. At the center of the storm is the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, IEBC, which is equally digging in.
For the avoidance of doubt, the commissioners are not resigning. We will be setting a dangerous precedent if every time we disagree with the decision, we seek the removal from office of those we don't agree with.
These are not personal positions. If they were personal, they would be in a private sector company. But these are offices that are held in public trust. And if there's a serious sign that the public faith in you or public trust in you is diminished, if you're holding such an office, the logical thing would be to resign so that you don't see tension and you don't see people going to the streets.
Na mimi nataka nitangaze hapa Olive Branch, wao wakijiuzulu, sisi kodi tutahakikisha wanapata haki yao. Hakuna mtu atawashtaki. Tutawaambia now you have acted like statesmen and stateswomen. Waende nyumbani wapate haki yao. Na hakuna mtu ambaye atawaandama kisha baadaye. Lakini wale ambao walikula chicken gate, hiyo lazima waandamwe.
Telltale signs that all was not well seem to have begun when government and opposition battled for the Malindi parliamentary seat by-election, whose outcome brought to the fore the bitter rivalry as the government went for Mombasa Governor Hassan Joho's neck after failing to snatch the seat from ODM.
Lakini nataka niseme nina uchungu. Na kama leo haki ni hii, wa Kenya jitayarisheni. Mwaka wa 2017 hakutokuwa na uhuru wa kupiga kura katika nchi yetu.
You can't challenge the government. Hata kama wewe ni nani. And more so when General Ngaiseri is in charge of security.
Seeds of discord that shifted to parliament as a section of opposition MPs embarrassed the president as he rose to present his third State of the Nation address by interrupting his speech as the nation and foreign envoys watched.
I want to draw your attention to the provision of Standing Order number 111.
This house, Jubilee today marked, we were told 5 people were marked for each one of us. What is that? The other day, some of us were violated in this house. They think that can silence us. No, cannot silence us.
I think the Speaker of the National Assembly should have sent even more people outside. I think sometimes they should be allowing us to deal with these people because this is hooliganism in the house.
Open defiance and tensions that have rekindled memories of the dark years of the 80s and 90s.
Anybody who will threaten the peace and the stability of Kenya for political end will face the full force of the law. Viongozi mujue ya kwamba ni nyinyi mutaumia.
The legal framework is very limited for the President of the Republic of Kenya because we are no longer living in those times when the president would cough and everybody catches a cold. I think those days are gone, and they're gone kabisa.
They have gone through an international process of justice after allegations of acts of terror. We've witnessed the termination of the lives of witnesses, and they have managed to overwhelm the whole world in that particular case. So maybe we're dealing with a very hardened people who say if you can beat the whole world, then what is called for us?
What we are seeing is a very objective, very well-planned strategy to try and cause mass pandemonium around the country and to try and make it a very uncontrolled process. And when you do that, you will come out with what we call unpredictable results. Unpredictable results are deaths in places that you did not intend them.
The body tasked with the responsibility to champion national cohesion and integration, NCIC, appears shaken by the turn of events in the country.
The prevailing situation in the country is at most irresponsible, unfortunate, and untenable. Allowed to take root, these series of events will roll back the gains we have made As a nation, we have had enough of traumatizing situations, and it makes no sense for political elite to begin another poisonous conflict that can drive us to civil strife.
However, when KTN News raised the alarm 2 months ago, the response was,
It isn't the responsibility of the police to instill political good manners. Indeed, it is your responsibility as the press to highlight those who engage in actions or utterances or behavior that is antisocial, that is threatening to society, that is not expected of a leader. That is the business of the press. It's not the business of the police.
And now the chickens have come home to roost.
We are appealing to the political elite and their supporters to reject violence and explore alternative means of resolving the grievances at hand. We urge the government and opposition to act with openness, sobriety, and tolerance in addressing the source of the current impasse.
A section of Catholic bishops, the National Council of Churches, have made personal appeals to the opposition and IEBC to dialogue, but it said the government has declined to give them audience even as the situation threatens to get out of hand. Just like in 2007 post-election violence, the country was polarized and divided into two after the 2005 referendum. 9 years down the line, what began as clamor for constitutional amendment has metamorphosed into an anti-IEBC protest and is equally threatening to culminate into another catastrophe.
We are very quick at forgetting. Kriegler put it very well, that if you do not look at Kenya in a much better way, what you had in 2007 was nothing. It could get worse. We forget people are displaced and people died. And I don't need to apportion blame on anybody. I just want to take a scenario that people are displaced and people died. Whether for political reasons or for any other reason, that remains a historical fact.
All you are hearing is a cacophony, noise about, chest thumping, Everybody is trying to say, I'm going to have my way, and if it's not me, it's nobody. I mean, this is not how you're going to build Kenya.
We are just surviving because Kenyans are potentially people who love God. Practically, they may not be God-loving, but they have the potential. Theoretically, they can sing God. Because of that, maybe God is keeping us.
The month of May has witnessed violent protests between the opposition and the police, who have ensured that protesters don't get anywhere near the IEBC headquarters. The men and women in uniform have resorted to live ammunition against protesters, further inflaming the tensions.
I want to ask any youth that is involved in any demonstration, whether that demonstration is lawful or unlawful, that you can never threaten the life of a police officer. It doesn't matter the level of agitation, but if you will threaten the life of any police officer, then you have yourself to blame.
Police blame some of the protesters for the violence, but those caught in the mayhem include many helpless Kenyans whose future is now in doubt.
The country is dancing on a precipice and it may flip over.
For many politicians, this is a game, a thriller that eventually gets them to the positions of authority. Consider how their positions have changed over time. This was Moses Wetangula talking about the Electoral Commission in 2007.
I want to say what I've said again, that sending home the Electoral Commission today is like dealing with the symptoms and leaving the disease.
And this is Wetangula talking about the Electoral Commission in 2016.
And I've told Hassan and his group that, you know, when you hold an office of public confidence, the moment the confidence goes down, you have no business hanging on, because it's not your office.
This was William Ruto in 2007.
In Juja, the total number of votes obtained by all the parliamentary candidates is 85,000. The president has 100,000. Now, it means 15,000 people voted for the president and walked away. They didn't vote for the parliamentary candidates. I mean, how is that possible?
And this is William Ruto in 2016.
Yale ambayo hatukubali ni kwamba wanaleta wananchi barabarani, kunatokea umwagikaji wa damu, kunatokea uharibifu wa mali na kunatoka fujo Nairobi.
Also, do you remember this famous picture? The politicians in the end all belong together. In 2007, William Ruto and Raila Odinga were bosom buddies, both in ODM. That time, Uhuru Kenyatta and Moses Wetangula flew the flag of PNU that bitterly fought with ODM. And so was Kalonzo Musyoka. It is not clear who will be where when the chips are finally down in the last tussle. For now, the country is on the brink again. The international community is alarmed. The religious leaders appear unable to get everyone around the table. The opposition is enjoying the thrill. The president is giving angry speeches. His coalition is cheering him on. The perfect recipe for a meltdown. Who will save the nation?
The drums of possible violence are being heard by all of us. And if you haven't heard them, then you don't know anything about this country.
Duncan Hemba for KTN.